Hello everyone! So our lesson for this week is solving equations with radicals and rational exponents, which is found on page 158 on your textbook. We have 5 steps on how to solve. The first one is to write the equation so that the radical with variables is alone in the left or either the right side of the equation. And we have to raise it with the index of the radical or the denominator of the rational exponent. We have to simplify it first. Now, if there is still a radical sign or a rational exponent, we need to do steps 1 to 3 again. Let's have the radicals first before we have the rational exponent later on. So since we're going to follow the steps in your book, we're gonna have to square this first since the index is squared and we don't have any other terms on the left side of the equal sign. So squaring this, so simplifying this one, we now have 4a squared plus a minus 3 equal to 4a squared. For us to solve for a, we transpose your 4a squared to the left side. So that would become 4a squared minus 4a squared plus a minus 3. That would be equal to 0. So simplifying, since this is 4a squared minus 4a squared, that would be 0. A minus 3 equals 0. Transpose your negative 3, so your a would now be positive 3. So that is your answer. For example number 2, it's the same as example 1 since the square root is already isolated on the left side of the equal sign. So we're gonna square them. That would be squared. After that, we simplify. So we have your a squared minus a minus 4 equals 16. Now what we're going to do here is to transpose 16 on the left side. And further simplifying this one, we have a squared minus a minus 20. That would be equal to 0. We're gonna use factoring. Since we have here a, that would be a number that if we multiply would be negative 20, and if we're going to add would become negative 1, would be negative 5 and positive 4. Now, for us to solve for your a, we equate it to 0. That would be a plus 4 equals 0. A minus 5 equals 0. Therefore, the values of your a are negative 4 and positive 5. Let's have example number 3. Now, if you look at here, I already did the first, second, and third step for this one. And what came out was 8x squared minus 12x minus 36. Some of the expressions or equations that you're gonna encounter are tricky. Now, if you look at this, if we go back here, since if we use this method, we're gonna have a hard time. When we look at this, since 9x squared could be further simplified, let's try to use this method. Since 3x squared or the square root of 9x squared is 3x, right? That would be the square root of your 9x equal to your x plus 6. It would be easier if we use this, transpose your x to the other side. That would be 3x minus x equals to 6. That would be 2x equal to 6. Divide both sides by your 2. Therefore, your x would now be equal to 3. So for example number 3, there could be other methods on how you could solve for the variables. Now, it would depend on what you would like. If you want to use this one, then you have to solve this using any methods that you know, or you could either use this method since it's easier already. Rational exponents. Now let's have example number 1. For example number 1, as you can see here, we have a negative exponent. So when we have here x raised to negative 1/4, that would be multiplied to negative 4. Since your denominator is 4 and we have a negative sign, so when we do that to 1/2, that would be 1/2 raised to negative 4. If we multiply negative 1/4 times negative 4, that would be 1, so that would be x. Let's solve for your 1/2 raised to negative 4 already. So if we're gonna do this, since it has a negative exponent, this would become 1 over, we have 1/2 raised to 4, right? So simplifying that 1, that would become x is equal to 1 over, we have 1 over your 16, since 2 raised to 4 is your 16. The answer would be 16. For example number 2, we have the same case here. It's a negative exponent. So let's try to do what we did for example number 1. We multiply the denominator, which is negative 3. So further simplifying this one, when we multiply already the negative 2/3 times negative 3, that would be a squared equal to 1 over 4 raised to 3. Simplifying 4 raised to 3, a squared would now be equal to 1 over 64. Since this is a squared, we square root both sides for us to find the value of your a. So that would be square root. The value of your a would now be positive and negative 1/8. Now for example number 3, we have here a binomial raised to a fraction. That would be x minus 1 raised to negative 2/3 raised again to your negative 3 equal to 1 raised to negative 3. Now if we multiply this, that would become x minus 1 raised to squared, and 1 raised to negative 3 is 1. We now square root both sides for us to remove the square here. So that would be x minus 1 already is equal to, you might say we have 1. But let's try to recall the square root. When we square root a number, there would be a positive root and a negative 1. So that would be positive and negative 1. So when we transpose negative 1 to the right side of the equal sign, that would be x equal to positive negative 1 plus 1. Now since we have two signs, we now have two roots. It would either be x is equal to 1 plus 1 or x is equal to negative 1 plus 1. So your x could either be 2 or it could be 0.